I have a question about the Middle East trip. Will any of the president's family members, like including Don Jr., Eric, or Jared Kushner, be joining him on the trip?
I am not tracking any of the president's family members joining us at this time, but of course, the first family is welcome to come. I hope they would. They're great people, great to be around, but I'm not tracking them on the manifest.
And given that you noted he is a successful businessman, do you know if the president has any plans to meet with any of the folks involved with any of the family businesses over there, or see any of the sites that are going to be
Not to my knowledge, and let me just get to the premise of your question that both of you have raised. I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public reelected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interests of our country and putting the American public first. This is a president who has actually lost money for being president of the United States. I don't remember these same type of questions being asked of my predecessor about a career politician who was clearly profiting off of this office. That is not what President Trump does, and this White House holds ourselves to the highest of ethical standards.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, as you can see from that intro, yeah, we're rolling along smoothly these days, folks. I'm loving this narrative against Donald Trump. Anytime the left just doesn't have anything, they just go, oh, he's just doing everything. He's a narcissist. Everything he does is for himself, right? Like, look at everything that's going on with Donald Trump, for goodness sakes. These people ignore reality on a constant basis. I've got one hell of a news article for you guys today, too, as well. But it's like this narrative that, oh, Trump's a narcissist. He's just enriching his billionaire buddies. It's just laughable, right? Donald Trump has lost a lot of net worth doing this job. He's literally put himself in the line of fire to do this job. He's losing a lot doing this job. Why? Because he loves the country, wants to save the country. And I love the argument that now that, you bring all the facts and you kind of prove almost outright that Donald Trump isn't doing this for himself. And then all of a sudden, oh, you're a Trump cultist. Yeah, there you go. That's an argument, by the way. Yeah, try to win some debate points with that argument, and we'll see how far you get. It's laughable, folks. But these journalists these days, they just they blow my freaking mind, y'all. And the corporate press blows my mind even further. And no, this isn't the ending of the video. This is the beginning of the video, folks. Let's get into the news article, because this one is just... it's funny. We'll put it this way, and it goes along with that clip. So check this out, y'all. The future of history. Oh, that's funny. Trump could leave less documentation behind than any previous president. Oh, my goodness. This thing, they go way off into the weeds on some nonsense, and it's most of it's easily debunked. They just lie outright. It's fascinating, y'all. It really is. And once again, folks, we're pointing out the manipulations on this one heavily. Check this out. For generations, official American documents have been meticulously preserved and protected, from the era of quills and parchment to boxes of paper to the cloud, safeguarding snapshots of the government and the nation for posterity. Now, the Trump administration is scrubbing thousands of government websites of history, legal record, and data it finds disagreeable. Now, I wonder why that would be. Oh, I wonder if that is even true. We don't know, because they don't expound upon that. However, I happen to disagree with that. But, it is what it is. They're making a claim. Now it's up to them to back that claim up. It has sought to expand the executive branch's power to shield from public view the government's slashing efforts of Elon Musk's team and other key administration initiatives. Officials have used apps such as Signal that can auto-delete messages containing sensitive information rather than retaining them for record keeping. Now, this is some of the most deranged nonsense I think I've ever heard in my life. Sure, they use Signal and it auto-deletes, but once again, are these people going to complain that, hang on, a conversation that Bill Clinton had with a staffer back in 1990, well, that staffer didn't write everything Bill Clinton said down, and we didn't save that. That's what Signal pretty much is. It's almost like in conversation, but it's through the airwaves, for goodness sakes. It's just conversations. Are you really wanting to keep that for record keeping? This is what they're complaining about. And this is about the closest I'll give to winning the argument here. All right? Signal chat. Oh my goodness. That's about the closest they get. Everything else is lies and manipulations. Just blatantly. It's fascinating, y'all. It really is. Let's see, where were we at? And they have shaken up the National Archives leadership and even ordered the rewriting of history on display at the Smithsonian Institute. Now, what is fascinating about that, you read this and you're like, oh my goodness, he's rewriting history? Trump's a dictator. He's an evil orange man. Let's get our pitchforks and stakes out and go burn everything to the freaking ground. Let's burn the Constitution. Might as well. But you notice the little highlight right there. And you see that, right? Anytime in these news articles when you see something highlighted, or at least I'll say with the Associated Press, you can click on it and it expounds upon what they're talking about. So I was like, what do you mean rewriting history? This has got to be some manipulative nonsense. So I clicked on it, and it went to this article talking about the Smithsonian, and it's fascinating. This is an excerpt from that news article. What are Trump's specific objections, right? Because they were talking about Trump objects to the Smithsonian, blah, 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 some nonsense. In his executive order, he made the claim that the National Museum of African American History and Culture has proclaimed that hard work, individualism, and the nuclear family are aspects of white culture. Oh, so he's rooting out racism. And they call this rewriting history, folks. How is that rewriting history? Oh, but let's keep going. That wasn't the end of that. And criticized an upcoming exhibit at the American Women's History Museum that highlights the achievements of trans athletes. So he's rewriting history, folks. Yes. Today in news, a man broke every single record in women's sports. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look. This utter nonsense delusional dream world that the left lives in, is that rewriting history because he wants to remove some delusional nonsense from a museum, for crying out loud? Oh, is this some sort of achievement that some trans man thinks he's a woman and goes in to women's sports and beats all the records? Like, are you freaking kidding me on this? They're going to call that, oh, he's rewriting history. Is that so? I don't disagree. There you go. Go ahead and think that. It's fascinating. He also singled out an exhibit at the American Art Museum that promotes the view that race is not a biological reality, but a social construct. That's what they just said. That race is a social construct. So Trump is rewriting biology now, apparently, because apparently, according to the left, race is a social construct, just like gender is a social construct, has nothing to do with biology whatsoever. I think that they need to reread this article and have some sort of biology textbook on hand. And then, whenever you get to a point where you think that Trump's rewriting history, why don't you go and look through some history books, look through that biology book, and then come back to me and tell me that Donald Trump is rewriting biology over here, for goodness sakes. Yeah, that was just utter nonsense. Like, this is your evidence for Trump rewriting history. Are you freaking kidding me on this? No, they're not kidding you. The Associated Press is a serious corporate press news outlet, for goodness sakes, and they are writing all of this stuff, and most of it is manipulative nonsense. Some of it's just outright lies, and we'll get to that. All of that follows President Donald Trump discouraging note-taking at meetings, ripping up records when he was done with them, refusing to release White House visitor logs, and having staffers sign non-disclosure agreements during his first term. Then being indicted for hauling to Florida boxes of sensitive documents that he was legally required to relinquish. So, once again, folks, they are complaining about... Are you kidding me? Like, ripping up notes after a meeting doesn't want people to take notes during the meeting? Like, holding on to the visitors' logs? I don't know if I believe that one. Like, where's your proof? Where's your evidence of this? Like, once again, folks, The corporate press, one of those manipulative tactics they love to use is, oh, well, Trump or whoever, Republican, it's always a Republican, by the way, made a claim without evidence. Well, that's exactly what they're doing here. That's exactly what the corporate press does on a consistent basis. Right? Sometimes they do show some of the evidence, but most of the time they don't. They just make a claim, and then as for a source, they will source themselves. Like I was saying, all those little blue splotches on there, that's links that link you directly to another Associated Press article. This is circular logic here, if you will, like circular fact-finding, sorry. It's just funny. This is really funny. Them being indicted for hauling. Notice they said indicted. We'll get to that. They expound upon that here in a little bit. We'll get to that. Visitor logs. Are you having staffers sign non-disclosure agreements, like as if they don't do that already? Like Biden done that, Obama done that, all of them do that, right? There is some sort of secrecy to government, right? Like there's sensitive information discussed all the time. Like think about that for a second. Oh, we're just going to allow them to go out and talk about anything that we've said. Of course, Donald Trump talks about classified information with staffers. Of course, they're going to have to be sworn to secrecy, for goodness sakes. Like, what is wrong with the Associated Press? Right? What they're trying to do here is they're trying to portray like Donald Trump as some sort of dictator, not counting on the fact that you are counting on the fact that you don't think about things like what I'm talking about here. This is why the corporate press has lost their credibility, and why they absolutely do not want me or people like me reading and scrutinizing their news articles, because once again, I can point out all the manipulations, all the lies. Once again, they're not counting on the fact that, hang on just a second, okay, so you said he's some sort of a dictator. Well, they didn't actually levy that claim, but you get the air of what they're trying to do here. Oh, Donald Trump's not, he's going to leave the least amount of records in president history, or whatever that headline was. It was nonsense, right? And then they go on to say something like having staffers sign non-disclosure agreements, as if classified information isn't discussed with some of these staffers, right? As if some of the staffers don't bring some of that classified information to the president himself. Of course they're going to have to be sworn to secrecy. Once again, folks, and you think they just keep the visitors logs? No, you have to file, a FOIA request to get this information. It's just ridiculous, man. To historians and archivists, it points to the possibility that Trump's presidency will leave less for the nation's historical record than nearly any before it, and that what is authorized for public release will be sanitized and edited to reinforce a carefully sculpted image the president once projected, even if the facts don't back that up. And once again, do you think any other president hasn't ever done this? Does the corporate press think that you, the audience, or anybody that would read that article, just doesn't know that the government redacts documents before it ships them out? Like, redactions are a thing. The corporate press thinks you're too stupid to understand what a redaction is. That's basically what they said. Oh, he's going to redact information. What, the government deals with a lot of sensitive information. Jesus Christ. And once again, as if any other presidency hasn't done this in the past. Of course they want the administration to be viewed as positively. Every single president has done that. Every one of them. I don't care who they are. It's insane, it really is. This article is just nuts. How will experts and their fellow Americans understand what went on during Trump's term when those charged with setting aside the artifacts documenting history refused to do so? The administration says it's the most transparent in history, citing the Republican president's penchant for taking questions from reporters nearly every day. But flooding the airwaves, media outlets, and the internet with all things Trump isn't the same as keeping records that document the inner workings of an administration, historians caution. Do historians caution that? Are you kidding me on that one? Once again, as if any other presidency doesn't do this. That's especially true given the president's propensity for exaggerating, particularly when it comes to bolstering his own image and accomplishments. Yes, everybody knows this. I'll give them that one. Yes, you are correct, corporate press. He does embellish a lot. He thinks he controls history, says Timothy Naftali, a presidential historian who served as founding director of the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum in Yorba Linda, California. He wants to control what Americans ultimately find out about the truth of his administration, and that's dangerous. Is that dangerous? Like, how dangerous? What are these dangerous things that we're talking about here? Right, once again, taking a quote from a very biased person to portray a narrative, that's what they're doing here. Once again, folks, these people are so manipulative, it blows my mind. Because if he believes that he can control the truth, he may believe that there is nothing that he can do that would have consequences. Right. Watchdog groups are most immediately worried about what the administration is doing in real time with little oversight or accountability. That's always a concern, by the way. They point to Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, and other top officials seeking to obscure sweeping efforts to remake government, the economy, and large swaths of the nation's civil and cultural fabric. With this administration's history of tearing up records, storing them in unsecured facilities in Florida, its use of Signal, said Scott Amy, general counsel of the Project on Government Oversight, which has sued DOGE seeking greater access to records. At that point, there are a lot of questions about how's DOGE operating. And is it operating within the law? Trump has made concealing even basic facts part of his political persona. What? What are y'all even talking about? Made concealing even basic facts? What? Where are they getting this from? Okay. He long refused to release his tax return. Oh, that's what they're talking about. Why are people so caught up on that? Like, I never understood that. Who cares about how much he paid in taxes? He's a billionaire. He's going to pay a lot in taxes. Maybe he doesn't pay as much as you might think, but, like, I never understood that. Who cares about that? He long refused to release his tax returns, despite every other major White House candidate and president having done so since Jimmy Carter. Today, White House stenographers still record every word Trump utters, but many of their transcriptions are languishing in the White House press office without authorization for public release. Yes, this is very standard. Once again, they are banking on the fact that you don't know that this is standard and that you have to sue the government in a FOIA request to get this information. But you can sue the government and they will have to release this information. Once again, this is every president, folks. These people are insane. That means no official record for weeks, if at all, of what the president has said. What? Like, are you kidding me? You want to have a record because that's how you ensure accountability, said Lindsay Chervinsky, executive director of the George Washington Presidential Library in Mount Vernon, Virginia. You can't hold people accountable if you don't actually know what happened. What did that statement have anything to do with anything, for goodness sakes? Like, once again, they even told you. Oh, hang on, he doesn't want to release these records for weeks. What? Like, he still releases the records, for goodness sakes. It's insane. And once again, as if every other president hasn't done this. If this isn't standard protocol. Presidents are legally obligated to keep up the historical record, as if Donald Trump is not doing so. After the Watergate scandal forced Nixon to resign in 1974, he tried to take documents home to California. Congress approved a law requiring document preservation that applied only to Nixon. 4 years later, the Presidential Records Act extended similar rules to all commanders-in-chief. It mandates the preservation forever of White House and vice presidential documents and communications. It deemed the property of the United States government and directs the National Archives and Records Administration to administer them after a president's term. A separate measure, the Federal Records Act of 1950, is meant to safeguard for the historical record the actions of other officials. It says their communications should be preserved, sent to the National Archive, whose headquarters is down the street from the White House, and are generally subject to requests for information under Freedom of Information Act requests. The Presidential Records Act affords presidents the exclusive responsibility for the custody and management of their records while in office, and says the National Archives plays no role except when a president wants to dispose of such materials. Oh, so he can get rid of materials. Got it. Once again, folks, they tell you at the beginning of the article, oh, he's trying to get rid of records, as if he's not supposed to do that. And then they go on to tell you, well, that's totally authorized under the Presidential Records Act. This is the manipulations that I'm constantly talking about, folks. Like, they don't bank on you reading the whole article, and they don't bank on you knowing information, like knowing a little bit of civics about your government, so you can kind of correlate what they're saying to reality and then realize that they're lying. They don't want you to realize that they're lying. They want you to take their word for it. They are the truth bringers. It's insane. It really is. Further, it protects some presidential records from Freedom of Information requests for 5 years after a president leaves office, and can even block release of some records for up to a dozen years after a president's term is up. Once again, folks, crashing the earlier narrative, oh, that Donald Trump's trying to keep records secret over here. It is insane what they do. Presidents also can evoke executive privilege to further limit certain types of communication from release. So, once again, folks, like I was saying, you go back to the beginning of this video and correlate that with this section of the video, and it's like, none of it makes any sense. Why did you even tell us any of this stuff? It is insane what they try to do, folks. Oh, goodness. Once an administration is over, however, there are rules about what even the president must retain for the public. The Presidential Records Act also prohibits presidents from taking records home. Now they're telling you that the Presidential Records Act says that it prohibits presidents from taking records home. Okay, so I was like, well, that's a lie. But, just to be fair about that, I went to our good friend over on X, Grok, our AI chat buddy over here, and I asked him a simple question. Does the Presidential Records Act prohibit a president from retaining documents? The Presidential Records Act, PRA, of 1978 governs the management and preservation of presidential records. It does not explicitly prohibit a president from retaining documents, but establishes the presidential records are public property and must be preserved and transferred to the National Archives and Records Administration at the end of a president's term. That's best evidenced by Trump's 2022 federal indictment for mishandling classified documents. Rather than turn them over to the National Archives, Trump hauled boxes of potentially sensitive documents from his first term to his Florida estate Mar-a-Lago, where they ended up piled up in his bedroom, a ballroom, and even bathroom and shower. Now that's a lie. That's just a blatant lie. Right? No, he had documents at his house, but they were in a safe, for goodness sakes. They were stored where they were supposed to be stored. They were under Secret Service protection, for goodness sakes. Right. And once again, they leave out the information that those 2 boxes of documents, as we covered on the channel, were shipped to a NARA facility where they sat for 6 months while the archivists or whatever, they went through all the records to make sure Donald Trump could retain those records. And then they were shipped to Mar-a-Lago. But the corporate press, they don't ever tell you this, but it's easily fact-checked. Well, it's because independent journalists had to go and dig all this up through FOIA requests. We covered all this. I forget how long ago that was now when we covered the news articles when we found this information out. But we found this information out that, yes, NARA held onto those records because they had to go through the records to make sure that what Donald Trump was keeping was his personal records and not presidential records. You see, that's what the corporate press is doing here. They're splitting hairs. They're calling what Donald Trump had presidential records, when that was his personal records that he is most definitely allowed to take home. They said it was classified, but oh, hang on just a second. We found out that the FBI made up these sleeves, these folders or whatever the hell they were called. I forget what they were called, placeholders, right? And put classified or sensitive information and then strew that all over the ground and took a picture of it and leaked that picture to the corporate press to make Trump look bad. It's insane, but they don't tell you all this, folks. The FBI raided the property to recover them. The case was later thrown out, though, and then abandoned altogether after Trump won back the White House last November. And once again, folks, like I always say, if these people truly believe that Donald Trump broke the law, if they really believed that there was some sort of coup attempt by the president, regardless if the American population voted him back in as president or not, these people are going to stick to their guns. They're going to say, nobody is above the law, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to hold on to these indictments until Donald Trump slips out of office again. And then they are going to hammer him to the freaking wall. But what did they do? They dropped all the charges. Just boom. They're not holding on to these. They're not going to go after him when he comes out of office. They dropped the charges, folks. They didn't have to do that, but they did that anyway. It's just insane what the corporate press does on these articles. And I'm sorry, I'm not ranting as much as I normally do on this one because this was a long article and there was a lot of manipulative BS in here. So, you know, it is what it is, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up right here. Y'all make sure to do me a favor, smash that like button for me, subscribe if you're new around here and you want to stay up to date with how you're being manipulated by the corporate press. That is what we do. Y'all do that, subscribe, sign up, become a member, be an active participant in this thing. Help me help you guys learn about reality and how the corporate press is trying to distort reality to fit their narrative. That's exactly what they do. And share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. But that's all I got on this one. Y'all let me know what y'all think. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.